Okay, everyone, welcome to the Berlin Select Board meeting for Monday, January 23rd. It is 2023. It is 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Just as a reminder that meetings of the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable Access and YouTube channel, so that your voice and your image and your telephone number may be recorded. Although the printed agenda shows that we have an executive session, if we end up needing that, we'll do it at the end of the meeting and not at the beginning, so that we can jump into things, because we have many people in the audience today for upcoming hearings, and we'll be better stewards of their time as well. We have two minutes to approve from January 29th and our minutes from the coffee talk.
I can make the motion to approve the January 9th and the 19th minutes.
Seconded.
Great. I think we're ready to vote then. Hawkins, aye.
One quick change. In number 7 on January 9th, I think the word sent should be set. Just a typo. Is everybody good with that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Even if you told me that, I went by that word in the minutes and didn't catch the typo. I was like, no, that says sent. Oh, that's right. That's supposed to be set. Yes, I get it. Yep.
And every once in a while, those things just jump out at me.
Yep. Good. Because again, I could read the sentence 6 times and not catch it. So glad you did. Those edits have been made in the minutes. I think we're then ready to vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Oh,
Did we lose Peg?
Uh-oh.
she frozen.
We just had a power surge here.
Is that what that was? Oh,
Yep, that was a little surge.
Uh-oh. So got some heavy snow out there on those limbs.
So
Right.
Scott, typically what happens if a storm knocks?
Yep.
And I'm wondering who I should make it the offsite. Kristen, there's no point you being the co-host.
I'm
Scott,
coming to your house, Chris.
being a co-host on Zooming, or
If you want to make me the co-host, I can.
just for
I'm
the
not
sake of
great with
keeping
some of
them.
those. Right.
All right.
I am on, as I was saying before the meeting started, I've moved to my hotspot from my local home internet, and I'm on a laptop. So if even I lost power or a power surge, I would last a little bit until we got back.
Oh, Peg just texted the transformer went outside, no power or internet.
Uh-oh.
Now, do you want to,
So
can
we
she
have-
get on a cell phone and ping off a tower to join us on Zoom? If she has a smartphone, she can do that.
Let me text her, or use smart,
Or you want, I can try to get a hold of her.
or I'm sending her a message. Or maybe she has an iPad, or she could use her smartphone, like you said. That's a good suggestion.
Well,
Right.
the iPad only if it has the internet.
Oh, that's a
data.
valid point.
And then the rules are, even though we have a quorum, if someone who wants to attend can't because of it, we should hold off doing things, correct?
Well, I think I used to say that if somebody loses power or loses their technology, then we'd wait a few minutes to see if they could get back, but she's not coming back.
Well, she could call in on her
Yeah.
cell phone.
She can
Right.
call in a cell phone and we could participate as a call-in person.
Yeah,
Right.
let me get her, text her the call-in number.
Well, if we go down, Mary, whose house are we going to? Scott or Chris's?
I say, I don't know. We'll split up.
Should we flip a coin?
Yeah.
Mine
Well,
might be
Peg
a
has
little closer.
sangria, so Peg has sangria, but
Yeah.
She's in the dark.
yeah, I know. Well, you don't want it to go to waste.
I will not comment in a public forum about the volume of alcohol that might or might not be at my house.
Yeah.
Okay, Peg says no meeting for me.
Oh,
Um,
that's awfully rash. All right, hold on a minute.
hold on.
Well, is there, I mean, there
Yeah,
may be,
because the combination is also the roads are not great to be going out and driving. We might do some updates, but I know that she had some opinions on a couple of items that are on the agenda that I would not want to vote on without her being present.
Right.
And so I think as we go down the agenda, I think we can even look at the budget stuff. We might do some budget stuff and pass things, knowing that anything she would like us to reconsider, we will reconsider it at a future meeting.
I just emailed them.
I wonder if I could like
Um,
FaceTime her.
Well, but I don't know if Mary, Kristen, one of you want to see if there's any particular items that she wants to make sure we don't vote on tonight.
Sure.
Because I think it would sort of violate open meeting law stuff for me to have a side conversation with Peg about what she wants to vote on or not on tonight.
Okay, she says, hang on, she's reporting the outage at the moment and then
Okay.
first.
Okay. While she is doing that, Kristen, is there any correspondence worthy of discussion or pointing out at this point?
I do not have any correspondence, believe it or not.
Wow,
And the two of us voted yes on the minutes, so
yes.
that's a go.
As
Yep.
amended.
And I will say again, probably anything that we end up, I think I know some of the things that she's had some concerns about that we won't vote on tonight. I think if we vote on anything tonight that you would like us to reconsider, I will gladly put it back on an agenda to reconsider.
Sure.
There is a hand in the audience.
Stand by.
Yep,
Mary?
Mary Redding, yep.
She says she has questions on everything.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, I have a whole list of questions from Peg, which I
Right.
just had forwarded to me on the Hearst House. So that's definitely something we should not move forward on.
I agree.
Okay.
Thanks.
Uh,
Mary.
There could be, and I sadly, because we don't talk about agenda items outside of meetings, I have the Wheeler Dam, Pond Dam. I don't know her thoughts or opinions on that. I know that she raised some questions about the personnel policy later on.
Okay. She's asking me for the call-in number. Let's see.
I
if
just
it's-
texted it to her on a separate thread.
Perfect.
So let's see if she answers.
There are other, as we're working through some of the technical stuff here, there's the next thing on the agenda officially would be general public comments, which the select board just takes under advisement anywhere if there are any. And so if there are people who have general comments, they can raise their hands and let us know. So
And while we're waiting on that, Scott, if you'd like, I could do my town administrator report because that is in writing.
Yeah, I was actually thinking we might even just jump to the appointments,
Sure.
because I think those are fairly straightforward and we'll give her a few minutes to get on board. And I am sure at the next meeting, if she wants to add a vote to those, we can, but the first one I would take is the Lucia Ayers as appointing her to the Historical Commission. The Historic Commission has recommended actually the appointment at this point through a term through 5/31/23.
So moved.
I will second that. And then, yeah, I'll second that. And always grateful when people volunteer on town commissions and committees. So Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
And then Kristen, you have a notice to appoint or hire another town staff person.
I do. I actually have really excellent news. We, after, as you know, an extensive search to fill the highway department, have found a laborer. This gentleman is Christopher O'Clair. He is currently working for the town of Hudson and would like to come and work for us. Has a number of years experience. I want to say it's around 12. Sorry, I was just pulling up his resume because I wasn't quite there yet. Let's see. So he's been with the town of Hudson since 2007 with their DPW department, in one capacity or another. Has performed a wide variety of duties with them, including tree work, snow removal, general maintenance of grounds and buildings, repair of pumps, etc. We did an interview. The panel consisted of myself, Sue Tarian from personnel, Fred, the superintendent, and Jim, the foreman. I think he's an excellent candidate, and it would bring us to full staffing on the highway department. So this is my notice of anticipated employment. This is obviously conditioned upon passing the physical, which he actually, I have learned, has a DOT physical, which is far more comprehensive than any physical we offer. So we are covered there. And then obviously we'd have to do a Corey check.
So I can make the motion to appoint Christopher O'Clair as our new highway laborer.
And I think you said, Chris, this fills the highway department for the first time in a bit.
It does. I think Fred will breathe a sense of relief.
Yep.
Now we just need to get him an admin, which we're working on.
So I will second, and I think we're ready to vote on that. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
And then those people who have joined us in the audience, and those people sort of watching this later on at home, Peg has had an electrical and internet outage at her house. And so that we are looking at some relatively simple and pro forma stuff on the agenda right now to pound through to give her a chance to join us if she can. There will be items on the agenda we won't do tonight without her, because I know she's shown some keen interest in them, and even sent out questions for some of the presenters that they would like to hear back from. And so I don't think it would be fair for them to present even their answers to her questions without her be able to ask follow-ups or making sure they satisfy whatever concerns or excitement she has about various things. And so I'm scanning the agenda. Kristen, do you want to do a little bit of a town administrator report, and we will see where that gets us, and then after that we might start thinking about whether or not we even continue the meeting much long after that, if Peg can't get on, it doesn't have the ability to get on.
Sure, absolutely. So we are still working on budgets and had a round of meetings with departments, boards, and committees, and put forth some recommendations for you if we move forward this evening. We also took the recommendations that the board voted on at their last meeting to FinCom, and they have taken their votes as well. Pretty much the same as the select board. There might have been a couple small changes, which we'll talk about when we get to the budget. FinCom also has now met with the treasurer collector, myself, cultural council, the Community Preservation Act committee, and the conservation committee to go over their respective budgets. And our key upcoming dates are the annual town reports, which are due the end of January. Just another reminder to everybody, we will be closing the May annual town meeting warrant on February 13th. So that means you need to submit articles to our office with the narrative for those articles. If for some reason you have a board or committee meeting that does not meet prior to then and you are not able to get me the exact language, please just let me know what the item is so I can at least put a placeholder on there, because we will be closing that warrant on February 13th, hopefully as planned. And the other thing that would be happening on February 13th would be, we're scheduled to have a FinCom financial update with the select board, and I'll be talking to them about that on Wednesday when they meet to make sure they still want to move forward with that if the timing works well for everyone. Couple of other things going on, working on the ADA grant with Peg, and to do some of those minor updates. I actually met with the Earthworks Advisory Committee chair on 113. We talked about the soil importation bylaw, And I'll be working up a draft for the committee to do a public review, and with the hopeful goal of placing it on the May 2023 town meeting warrant. There may not be enough time to get it through a full public participation process, but we're going to give it a try. And obviously the select board would be involved in that review process too. We're still talking about different signage upgrades for the municipal offices, just to make it a little easier for when residents come in to be able to figure out where they're going. I can't tell you how many folks come in and do this, and then they kind of wander around and don't know where they're going. So we're using Assabet. They've already started on this previously with Margaret, and we're hoping to wrap that up. And thanks again to Peg for helping with that effort. I actually attended the Massachusetts Municipal Association annual meeting and trade show this last weekend, which is the big annual event for municipal government administrators and officials. And unfortunately, because we have a brand new governor who is 12 days in, we do not have state aid numbers yet. And she's hoping to get us some rough numbers in February, but basically the governor's budget won't be coming out until March 1st. So that is understandable given a new governor, but you know, it's going to delay us a little bit on the revenue side. So we'll just basically be running off of 23 actuals, and you know, with the hopeful possibility that those could go up a little bit. They generally don't go down. So as long as we stick conservatively with 23 numbers, we should be good. At the trade show this weekend, I caught up with an old legal counsel firm that I've used in a previous community. It's a small firm. They do general counsel, and I'd like to, at some point in the upcoming future, talk to the board. Now, this is just on the general counsel side, not the labor side. I have been a little bit disappointed with the cost of KP Law and some of the attention that we receive from them. And it's a little impersonal. They're very large. And this is a firm I've worked with before. They have 4 lawyers and 2 associates. They specialize in municipal government. They're used by the city of Framingham and a number of other municipalities.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have the meeting for it.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I believe they would be a bit more cost effective. So I plan to at least just take a meeting with them, get some pricing, but just so you all know, when we were doing the recording for the Conservation Commission, we received a very high bill. Instead of sending a courier, KP Law sent an attorney to pick up and record the document, which I disputed after, but unfortunately that was ex post facto, and just wasn't really happy with that. So just something to keep on the radar there. I've submitted the grant to Maya that I've been mentioning for the healthy vending machine for the municipal offices. So hopefully we will get that. And if you remember at the last meeting, we had the school department here. They were talking about doing a transfer of some capital funds from the sign that they're looking at now doing several fiscal years down the road to an HVAC equipment platform. And June has confirmed with DOR that that capital fund transfer does not require town meeting approval. And I have let the schools know. However, DOR was very clear that they approved of the process of having FinCom Capital and Select Board approve that, making sure that it's a transparent and clear and open process for the voters who did vote on those items. Accounting, thanks, many thanks to June and Amy. They've closed out 23 and FY23, and we're waiting on free cash certification from the state, which is a really interesting process because they will not give you an estimate on when that will be done. They say it'll be done as soon as we can. We're dealing with people who have earlier town meetings, and we're on the list. So as soon as we get that, we'll let you know. Been working on some transfer station matters with the Board of Health and Personnel. Service Master has been in and to do an extensive cleanup and repair to the ceilings at the town offices resulting from the roof leak in December. So it's unfortunately been a little noisy, but they have literally cleaned the inside of the ceiling every square inch. And they've done a great job. And so they're done with the cleaning, and they're hoping to come back this week and finish putting the ceiling tiles back in. And then the other thing that I'm looking to do at the request of CPA Chair Tim Wheeler is to prepare an ad for volunteers to serve on the housing trust that was created at last year's annual town meeting. So I've started looking at the composition of that trust, terms, and we'll work to put out some type of ad, and those are select board appointees. So my goal would be to gather applications and then bring them forth to CPA for review, for recommendations to the select board for, bring them to the select board for recommended appointment. So that is, I think, all that I had.
I think you mean it's closed fiscal year 22, not 23. We're
Did
still
I
in
say
fiscal year
23? You know what? This is because I've been looking at 24
Well,
so much that it seems like 23 is behind us now.
Right. I was about to say, because you're dealing with 3 fiscal years at once, the current one 23, budgeting for 24 and closing out 22, totally understandable.
You are correct. Yes, 22 the books have been closed out for 22. And we're just waiting on that free cash certification. And as soon as we get that, we'll know our numbers that we can look at for capital, what to put in stabilization. It gives us a lot of information that we'll need for town meeting.
Great. Sorry, trying to get I think Peg just texted saying she needs the number again.
Oh.
Assume that's Peg since.
She didn't get it from Mary. Okay. Hold on.
Kristen, I sent it to you and Peg, and I don't know if I have Peg's right cell phone number. So can
Maybe
you just
not.
copy it? and just dump it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send it right over.
Thank you.
We have fun just making things up as we go along.
There we go. So hopefully you all now have it, just in case, knock on wood, something happens to anyone. All right. So I didn't know if anyone had any questions. That's all I had for the town administrator's report.
No, that's good. And I did double check while you were doing that the link in the agenda does go to a folder on the website that contains it, because I sometimes worry that because that link has been sitting there on agendas for years, whether or not that link actually takes you to a place for them. So
Yeah, Mary's been keeping that up to date, so it's a good thing.
good.
Do you
The
have a
general,
hand in the audience? Carolyn McDonald?
sure.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Colin.
I just wanted to say that I wholeheartedly support finding somebody else to help with legal matters.
I forgot you were here, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's been just a constant struggle to deal with them on land purchases and CRs. And the price is ridiculously crazy. So go, Kristen. Love the idea.
Thank you. We are
That was-
very small fish in a big pond, and they are great. You know, they are the industry leader in municipal law, but there are other firms out there that are more tailored to smaller communities, and it's a bit more personal, and they're not as expensive. And you know, coming from another small community, I've worked with a couple of them, and I just think that we can do better.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like what we need in Berlin. But I just, especially in the interest of killing a little bit of time while we wait for Peg, just wanted to throw my 2 cents in.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Looks like
And-
Peg Stone is on the phone, it says.
Yes, it is picked up,
I'm
but it's-
guessing that is her cell phone number?
Yes, that is my cell phone number.
There she is.
Peg. We hear
Um,
you.
So we'll do our best, Peg, we'll see if this works at all for a little bit. Before we get into then some hearings, I think I want to point out that on the hearings tonight was our Highway and Facilities Superintendent, who is not going to be here because if anyone looks out a window, they will see the snow. And I really would rather him, and I'm sure he would rather be taking care and make sure all the roads are taken care of the best they can and not giving us an update, which I'm sure we'd love to have an update, but really more important that he's helping oversee the snow removal of town places. The building commissioner, I don't believe, is in the audience. And so we'll be able to pass over that. I am tempted. Look at the audience. Do we have the people for the Wheeler Pond Dam in the audience? Oh,
I see hands raised.
hands going up. So and since I know a couple of those names are associated with that project, I assume that's generally them.
Scott, can I just ask really quickly, before we jump in, did we want to do the treasurer collector?
Sure. While you're bringing those people forward, we'll also bring forward Dennis to do the treasurer collector while we collect all the people for the dam project, the Wheeler Pond Dam project.
All right. Let's see here.
Okay. So Chris, you want to take away the treasurer
Sure.
collector presentation? And then turn it over to
Absolutely.
Dennis.
Good evening, Dennis. Welcome. You have been brought here under false pretenses. I thought I would start off by saying that. You do not need to provide a report this evening. This is your last meeting. You have done decades of service to the town. We wanted to thank you and give you a proclamation from the select board. I will let Scott take it away.
We're doing a proclamation from the select board, whereas Dennis Farabee has with great skill, dedication, and professional have served as the Berlin treasurer collector, as first elected as treasurer 20 years ago and eventually serving by appointment, as served as the appointment collector since 2018, whereby Dennis Farabee has long served as member of the administrative finance team. And whereas Dennis Farabee has long served as the harassment investigator for the town, and whereas Dennis Farabee has long served on the Health Insurance Advisory Committee, whereas Dennis Farabee has served as 20 years an election warden. There's a lot of shoes to fill here now. Whereas Dennis Farabee was a founding member of the then ad hoc capital planning committee. And whereas Dennis has, where the town has benefited from Dennis Farabee's prior service as 24-hour per day on-call volunteer member of the Berlin Emergency Rescue Squad as an emergency medical technician. And whereas Dennis Farabee has served from 2019 to 2021 as treasurer of the Berlin Retirement Home Inc., a nonprofit corporation, which is focused on affordable housing for Berlin seniors since 1977. And whereas Dennis Farabee has long volunteered at the Joan Roads transfer station, take it or leave it shed, and intends to continue, I'm hoping, in that capacity following retirement. And where Dennis Farabee and his wife, Lorinda, has resided in Berlin over 40 years, rearing their children, Joseph, Charlotte, in town, and now grandson Trevor. We now, therefore, the members of the Berlin Select Board do hereby proclaim Friday, February 3rd, 2023, which is Dennis's last full day on the job, as Dennis Farabee Day in the town of Berlin. Signed, all three of the Select Board.
Thank you.
Hey,
Even before I was on the select board, I had a chance to work with you at FinCom for many years. You've been an incredible resource. You've done some great things for this town, and we're very happy for the work you've done, where you're leaving the town, the overlap you're having between you and the person who is, I was going to say, taking the position. I can't say filling the shoes. It's been great working with you.
Been great working with you folks.
been great working with you too,
It really
Dennis.
has been.
And we brought back a few memories there at Capital Planning.
A lot of fun.
That was when I was on school committee.
Yep.
And so it has been, and great. We'll miss you. I'm sure you have the last week, there'll be all kinds of chances for people to stop in to say hi or bye. And it's just, again, it has been great serving with you for all of these years.
I think we're gonna have fun with the new replacement. I have high hopes for him. I think he's gonna take us even further into the future. While keeping the past, it's kind of a balance. So we get to work with him for a week coming up.
Mhm.
And then I get to play farmer.
Nice.
And Grandpa.
Yeah.
And then he's free to volunteer for boards and committees.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We'll be sending you over the
Well,
listing
Dennis,
of all
if
the
you-
openings in town.
I
Dennis,
appreciate
if you ever want to come back and help me at the community garden on my plot, you know where to find me, number 27.
Sounds good. Well, thank you.
Dennis, I know we haven't had long to work together, but I just wanted to say thank you, especially for getting me up to speed and for all the work that you've done getting prepared for Paul. You've given me quite an extensive list to make sure that there's nothing that's missed, in your absence. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. It's been great working with you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dennis.
Sorry to make you come out in the weather.
We'll see you. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
I don't know how we follow that up with a conversation about the Wheeler Pond Dam, but we will figure out a way to do that.
I think I grabbed everybody in the audience, but if
Yeah.
there's others out there who need to raise their, okay, Heather Conkerton.
Yep.
And while you're bringing those folks forward, I'll just give a little bit of background. Robin and Sarah, who is the engineer on the project, reached out. They're looking for a letter of support for an MVP grant. They're looking to do, I believe it is I may not get the word right, but I'm sure Sarah will tell me if I'm wrong. Is it a deconstruction of the dam? Is that okay? Oh, I'm getting nods. Okay. So I, had reached out to Robin. She is the trustee of the estate. And there are some owed taxes on the state that she's working with Dennis to resolve on the property, rather, sorry, not the estate. Well, I guess it's one and the same. But this is a grant that is available and does require at least some type of letter of support, if not partnership, from the municipal side. I know that they are looking to partner potentially with ORS on this project, and I can let them tell you a little bit more about that, but just wanted to give you a little background and I can turn it over. I don't know if Sarah or Robin or Heather are speaking, but they're all here to give you a little better summary than I did and answer any questions you may have.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, so I'll start. My name is Sarah Whiting. I'm here for Robin, and I'm here with Heather to talk a little bit, very briefly, about the plans for the Wheeler Pond Dam. Thank you very much for this opportunity to come before you tonight. We're in very early days of this project planning. So we're here because we're in the process of applying for the Massachusetts, it's not the MVP yet, it's the Dam Repair and Removal Grant.
Okay.
It comes out of the state, it comes out of the office of Bill Hinckley. And we're applying for grant funds to advance the design and permitting and the ultimate removal of the dam. The primary goal of the removal is to reduce flood risk associated with the dam. It's not in very good condition, and Mass DCR has asked to try and take it down, and to restore ecological connectivity on North Brook, which is a Mass Fish and Wildlife cold water fishery that harbors trout populations. And so if we can connect this, get rid of the dam, get rid of that big jump in North Brook, trout will be able to move freely. So Heather's here from ORS. ORS, we're putting together grant applications due February 17th. and that's our due date when we want to have our materials to the state. We are asking you for very basically for a letter of support that we can include with our grant application. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the letter of support, or if you have questions about the project, we're here to answer them.
Has
Chris,
anyone drafted a letter of support?
I don't believe one has been drafted yet because we're going to see whether or not I think that the idea is tonight we might pass a motion to draft one and then have one drafted. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Don't ask. I don't know. No one has power around me. Don't say anything. So just continue and pretend I'm not here.
Did you sneak into
well,
someone's home?
Right.
No, I
do you-
didn't sneak into someone's
Do you
home.
have, Peg, do you have questions about the Wheeler Dam?
I do.
Right. Okay.
So for this letter of support, that doesn't mean that the town is forgiving of any of the owed taxes, correct? That we are not doing tax title, we are not taking this land.
That is correct.
And this, if allowed, will give the opportunity to apply for a grant to hopefully, decommission the dam, which will hopefully allow for a sale for the land, which will then allow the family to pay the town back the owed taxes.
That is the plan,
And-
as I understand it.
And if we approve or sign on to the letter of agreement and do not get the grant, or get the grant but do not sell the land, what is the process to pay back the taxes? Or is that a completely different discussion?
Shouldn't be.
I was gonna say, I would see that as a different discussion because I think my general take is that if the dam gets decommissioned, the property is more valuable to either the current owners or future owners. And so if for some reason they remove the dam and somehow decide that, I don't know, disappear and never pay taxes again, if the town got the land through tax title, because it's not taking away any of our options for tax title. And so we could still do it, I can't imagine we would do that during the process of removal of dam and this other stuff, but because it improves the value of the land, again, for them or a future owner, I think we're more likely as a town to get some return on that if we support this project.
And what exactly does it mean by us supporting a writing of this letter? What are the obligations of the town?
That's kind of what I was going to ask was, what is it that you'd like included in this letter?
I have a couple of things, but I don't want to put any words in your mouth. So some of the ideas that I had, if I were writing this for the town that I live in, I would say your municipal vulnerability preparedness plan identifies the dam as a risk for flooding, and it's on there as a priority to remove it. Now, here's someone coming forward to you with a project that's sort of potentially in progress if it gets funded to help achieve one of the goals that's in your town plan. There are some other goals in the Berlin Master Plan and the Open Space and Recreation Plan that may be able to be supported or achieved by participating in either by a letter of support saying it helps meet some of those goals, or these are early days in this project and there's some other things that can happen with dam removal projects. It's not uncommon in Massachusetts for municipal partners to, get some benefit out of them. And I'm not going to promise what's going to happen to this land afterwards, but this could be a potential access point for recreation and conservation, in town.
If I can add a little bit to that as well, your typical municipal letter of support for a grant is very specific to the project itself. So it would be that we support their plan for removing the dam.
And I could say that for the reasons that were just outlined by Sarah, without making any sort of commentary. We're not promising anything else related to it, except that it does help us with something that's identified on our risk plan, get accomplished.
Correct.
So Sarah, I think you said that it's February 17th that the grant needs to be in by. How long before you hear as to whether you got it or not? Ish.
I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I think that it's a few months before you hear if you receive it. I think that we have a strong application, but there's no guarantees. And if we don't get it, we'll just keep trying.
And if you do get it, how long, and again, ish, because I know these things are never carved in stone, how long-ish to do what you need to do to decommission the dam? A year, 2 years, 10, 5, somewhere in between-ish?
I put together a schedule today that if we got the funding, if we could do the data collection and survey this spring, then we could probably initiate permitting by fall. And then it'd probably be 2 years through construction. So 2 years.
Okay.
Do you have an estimated budget yet, Sarah? For the grant?
A very rough one. Right now we're putting together design and permitting. I think that at the top, the whole thing through construction could be $2 million, but I think that that's high. And so I'll just say that it'll be less than that.
And would the grant cover all that, Sarah, or would you need to go out and find additional funding?
We would probably need additional funding. So dam and seawall grants up to $250,000. And I think that that would get us through permitting and probably through construction documents ready for bid phase. And then construction is another animal that we'll get there when we get there. But
So really, if you get the grant, it's only going to allow permitting and documents to be done. There will be no actual work done because you might more than likely run out of money.
right. So we'll go for other grants. Then there are other grant programs for construction too. The dam and seawall repair program has 2 flavors of grants. One is design and permitting, which is what we're applying for. And then there is construction.
Walter, do you have anything you want to add? I know that you've been working on this for a bit.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I've been very familiar with that dam since probably the late 40s when barefoot and a bamboo pole, I was fishing with bluegills off of it, but been connected with it quite a bit since then. It used to be a major recreational area, by the way, for Berlin people. It was a great skating area and there's some boats down there and everything, but now unfortunately isn't. But anyway, getting to the selectmen and the Conservation Commission writing a letter of support, as I think through it, there's no negative losing downside to doing that. Everything is on the upside. Even if the owners, let's say, if we don't do this and they don't get grants, it just sits there because they obviously aren't prepared financially to go and take this on. And if they do get it and fix it up, and even if they sell it for a great profit, instead of giving it to us, which they should do, that is still the better thing to do, to get that thing fixed up, make it safe, and improve the habitat on it. I just think it's a win-win situation if we can get it done. That's all. Thank you.
So
Great.
does this include the ammunition depot that's out there as well, or is this just purely the dam? Just the dam?
Just the dam.
So what do we do about the ammunition depot? No idea.
I don't know. That's not for me to say.
I think Robin was starting to speak, but she's muted.
I'm hoping that possibly a land trust would take all of those lands and so that they could all be preserved.
As
So, Walter, I'm gonna ask you, who would likely purchase? Let's just say everything's good, letter goes through, awards come in, permitting documents, boom, chuckalaka, fast forward 2 years from now, we're good. Who would buy this? Is this an SVT type of purchase? I mean, because it's water, so it's not like unless somebody wants a houseboat, can't
Yeah.
really do anything with it. So who would be your likely target audience? And do these people exist to buy that?
SVT would be the most likely group to take it. When it's all done, by the way, it's going to be not just a dam made safe, breached, so downstream is safe, but there'll be efforts made to improve the habitat, the ecological aspects of it. And if that's the case, I could see SVT taking ownership of it, especially if it's given to them. But on the other hand, I don't know if the town had it, put it on conservation land in the town of Berlin, then we would have it as a connector between other conservation land and working our way up North Brook. North Brook is really the main artery of Berlin, and there's a lot of good habitat along it. And that mill pond would be good habitat once it was drained and channeled and restored to habitat. So the answer is SVT, PEG, and then I think the Conservation Commission ought to think a little bit about taking it over if the owners are agreeable.
Kristen, is there any way, or Walter, I don't know if Carolyn's here, to talk to SVT ahead of time and see if they'd even be interested in this?
I just contacted them and I will be meeting with them. So we've just been emailing.
You know, Peg, if you want somebody from Berlin, one of the officials doing it, I'll be glad to contact SVT and just talk about it and look at the map and see what they think and get an answer and email you on it.
That'd be great. Well, email all the board, please.
Yeah, I will, right.
Walter, I mean, I'd just be curious. I would just hate for all this land to be, fixed and time and expense to be
Mhm.
done, and then it sits, whether the Bonazzoli family gives it to the town, and then, of course, what cost would be associated with the town, for upkeep and doing any stuff to it. So it's kind of like, you ask one question, there's 3 more that follow it
Right.
for that. So I would just like to get some additional information on that.
I'll get on it tomorrow.
Yeah, please let us know who, there's Carolyn. Please let us know who you're talking to. I don't know if it'd be the same gal that was involved with Horseshoe Pond
Okay.
or not. I don't, Carolyn, is that a question that I'm gonna throw you under the bus and ask you right away?
No, that's fine. No bus involved. Krista Collins, who we worked with for Horseshoe Pond, no longer works with SVT, so it would definitely be somebody else. I know they're looking to replace Krista, and so I'm not really sure who it would end up being. Robin, are you talking with Meredith?
I haven't spoken to anyone yet. I've
Alright.
just sent out an email, so.
Okay,
But
Um,
Meredith,
it-
yes, but Meredith is one of the people who was sent an email.
yeah, so she's kind of stepping in for Krista right now. I know SVT has expressed an interest in the past. So, but like Walter said, either SVT or if the town decided they wanted to have it, it could become a decent recreation area other than South Common. It could be a picnic place, there's enough dry land that it could also be a useful piece of recreation property for the town. So, but I think helping Robin and Sarah get this grant is the best way that the town can help. That it can help resolve this issue. It's been ongoing for a long time now. And as Walter said, I do actually agree with Walter sometimes. There's no downside. for the town or for anybody else. So
Well, if you, Carolyn, if you do, or Walter, if you do talk to Meredith or somebody else at SVT, could you please mention the ammo depot? Because I don't want any surprises at the end where they think they're just buying land and we come up and say, hey, you know those things over there? Don't walk over there.
yeah,
You're still gonna buy them, right?
they
There
do.
isn't anything there
There
anymore.
isn't anything there
Okay,
at this point.
all right.
Oh, good. Oh, good, good. The SVT is so thorough with their due diligence. They had us, they had the plans redrawn for Highland Ridge because there was a big giant boulder that they didn't want to own. So they are very thorough. So but that's wonderful news, Robin, that there's nothing there anymore. That's
There are some old tires that need to be cleaned out, but the tenant is gone and all of the dynamite is gone. And I put a lock on the little building that was there. So the land is now empty.
good news.
Chris, you've been quiet. I just want to make sure we're not skipping over any of your questions.
No, I don't think so. Let me know when you're ready for a motion.
Peg, well, I'm ready for a motion, but I don't know if Peg has more questions.
No, you know what? Obviously, this is going to be a phased approach. And as Sarah was saying, even if they get the grant, it's just for documents. So I have a feeling that this, documents and permitting, this is going to be an ongoing discussion. So for this very small piece of this, I'm all right with putting a letter of support to get that grant, and then we go from there.
Do you want to make the motion, Chris?
Sure. I would make a motion to draft a letter of support in order for the Bonasolis to start the process and get an MVP grant for the Wheeler Pond Dam.
Seconded.
Can I just, can that be a joint letter between the select board and the commission or
Sure.
and the conservation commission?
I have no problem with that.
As long as the Conservation Commission ultimately votes to sign on the letter, I'm fine with the commission.
Yeah,
signing
we,
it.
we voted the other night
Okay.
to either send our own letter or a joint letter if you guys
Okay.
supported. So,
Sounds good.
I'm fine being with the joint, and I like some of the wording that Sarah provided, that it, helps us address and look at some of the things that are in our risk mitigation plan, and adds value to our, the land and increases the chances that unpaid back taxes have a chance of getting repaid. So all of those are good reasons.
So Scott, just while we're under discussion, are you comfortable with me working with conservation and Sarah to put a letter together? You want it to come back before the board on the 30th? How do you want to proceed?
I'm personally comfortable with you guys drafting. I think you have the general framework. I don't, as you know, I'm not much of a wordsmither myself. If you've hit the main points, I'll be fine with it.
I agree.
Kristen, does this need legal review at all? Or is it just truly a letter of support?
It's relatively perfunctory. I've done a dam and seawall grant before, so I've kind of seen what those are. Sorry, I had MVP in my head, but had the wrong one. So if it's something we can put together, and the fact that it's on the MVP list does strengthen it. And we can basically use that as part of our justification. What I can do is I can prepare it in conjunction with Sarah and Carolyn, and we can put it out for board signature.
Yep.
Sounds good.
I think it sounds like we might be ready for a vote. Then Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Great.
Thank you very much, and good luck, everybody. It'd be neat to see this move forward, even if it's going to be slow and require probably 8 more votes and 12 more meetings before the construction can start. But baby steps. Journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first steps. So
heading in the right direction.
yep.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think that allows us to move on to the next agenda item, which is the Hearst House
Bye, Sarah.
agreement
Thank
and vote. Yes, thanks. And so I think that's a different group of people to move forward.
So while Mary's bringing everybody forward, I'll just give a little bit of background. This came before the board, wow, I can say last year now. And Mary Porter kindly worked to draft an agreement based off of kind of a template I had of a care, custody, and control agreement. This has been looked at and reviewed by the Historical Society, and it is just a draft, just for discussion purposes. I know there were a number of issues that were raised, and so the direction given by the board was to put it up in an agreement and bring it back for further discussion. So that is where we are here.
I think you have Mary Reddington and June Miller. Are there others in the audience?
I think the Mary in the audience that has no F, is that Mary Porter, you think?
She really should just say Porter the lawyer, then I know who she is.
She's raising her hand, so I believe the answer to that question is yes. And the agreement we're looking at is the one that's in the board folder, correct?
Yes, and actually, oops, sorry, hold on. I think I did receive an email that there was I may have uploaded an earlier version. Hold on just a second. I'm just looking to see. Mary, can you just clarify? I see your email here that came through. It looks like came through Friday night on the agreement.
Right. If you can pull that one up, that's the one, Kristen, that we need to look at.
Okay, you want me to share my screen? I have it right here.
Well, right.
Oh. Okay. So I think, you know, in reviewing this, a key point was that the society, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're really looking to transfer ownership of the Hearst House to the town upon the completion of restoration and relocation to the old burying ground. And that would be the point at which the society would take ownership. So that is item 1 under this agreement, which, sorry, kind of goes from the bottom of page 1 up to the top of page 2. This is a period of 20 years, at least from this agreement. The society would have primary responsibility for preservation, maintenance, and use of the Hearst House and pay for all costs associated with such maintenance. After this 20-year period, the society and the town would determine whether the society continues to bear that primary responsibility for those items, or whether the town does, acting through the historical commission. Basically, the town would have the responsibility of managing legal matters and insurance coverage if we were to take it over once restored, and pay for costs associated with that portion. And the society would have responsibility for legal matters and insurance coverage during the siting process of the house. It also gives the authority to the town should any dispute arise regarding the siting activity that cannot be resolved between the society and the cemetery commission. The dispute shall be resolved by the town, and the town has full and final authority in the matter. Goes through a little bit here of the duties that the society will take on with regard to preservation, maintenance, and use. And basically talks about maintenance of the grounds being the responsibility of the Town of Berlin Cemetery Commission and done in cooperation with the society. So that is just a brief overview of the main points of the agreement. It is short and sweet, which is always a welcome change. And Mary, I just want to say thank you very much for putting this together. It is saving us money not having to have legal counsel put it together. We obviously would have them review it, but we at least have a framework for discussion purposes that we can then take forward to them once everything is agreed upon.
Thank you, Kristen. Chris or Peg, do you have questions about this?
I find it funny, Scott, that you always ask if I have questions. And I realize you're being polite, but
There may come a day when you have all your questions answered, Peg.
absolutely not. That day will never, ever come. So I will, of
Well,
course,
I thought
let
it
you
looked,
two go first.
I thought it looked like a very good document. And I think it covered everything that I was concerned about.
Scott?
I am fine with it. I thought it covered some of the concerns. I mean, I think it is a pretty simple. I think it's very nice and generous of the Historic Society to offer to take care of some of those costs. And to me, it's returning a building to where it has been for a long time, and in a condition that is way better than the building was in when the society took ownership of it.
All right. Mary's in June. Are you ready?
Peg, I was born ready.
All right. All right, here we go. So, first question. At the meeting which I attended, wonderful presentation, Mary Reddington, by the way. You had mentioned that the building is historical, but not on the historical registry, which may prevent you from getting additional or even asking for grants to help move this building along. So what is the process of, if any, to get this on the historical registry?
That's something, Peg, that we would look at doing after the building is assembled. I don't think we can apply for a building to be on the National Historic Registry when it's in a storage container. My understanding of that process is that it is extremely extensive. I know the society hired a writer to help them when they did the 1870 and the Bullard House. Excuse me. If other monies are available for maintenance of historic buildings, we might feel more pressure to move forward on the historic registry. The Mass Preservation does not let you touch any of their grant money unless you're historical. So we have a historic building that's not
Historical.
historical.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So in one of your meetings, and maybe it's when you were talking to us last time, you talked about potentially putting the house on, oh, June Miller has her hand up, so I'm going to wait. I don't want to interrupt June.
Okay.
June, you're on mute.
Sorry. I just wanted to say that the Mass Historical Commission actually paid for the nomination papers and all the work that went with it for the 1870 and the Bullard House. And it takes a lot of time. Once the nomination papers are in, then the wheels turn slowly at Mass Historical for the actual designation.
There was a meeting where there was talk of the building potentially being placed on a cement pad. Obviously, you don't want it on the ground, it's going to rot. But in listening to a cemetery commission meeting, they were talking about, and for lack of a better word, putting it up on stilts so that the water would run. So if there is discussion that you guys want you being Hearst people want it one way, and cemetery says, no, it's got to go up so that the rain, the runoff down the hill doesn't hurt it. Who wins? Who wins that battle for that?
Well, right now, Peg, and I did go through, I got the email from Mary Porter of your questions, so I kind of ran through a bunch of them while other business was going on. We're doing a site plan. Dave Westfielding is a civil engineer. We've already gone out and done some basic sketching and measuring. But until we fully develop that and the society approves it and the commission would approve it as well, we don't know if the water is going to run through it, then yeah, we might put it up. And they're not, stilts like on the ocean, but put it up.
Right.
And in answer to some of your other questions for this same kind of site plan, we may just put it on granite. Tom Mills has tons of granite and it has sat on granite in the past.
Okay.
Because it's such a deep dip into the cemetery, you know, we'll probably have to bring in a bunch of fill. The building inspector has said that we do not need ADA compliance because it's essentially a shed. And I do have that in writing from him via email, not an official letter. And so our hope is that we can make it as easy walking as it is to walk in a cemetery, you know, by making the incline not too steep to get to it. And that'll all be determined by the sketches, but it won't be ADA accessible. But we would really like people who have a cane or are pushing a stroller to be able to get to it. So we may have the back, you know, have the building go up and have the land come up to it. So it's not on the ground in the back, but it is in the front. But this is all kind of being worked out as we're looking at a site plan.
On number 6, and I don't know if I have the right version of it. This is one that Mary sent to me a couple of weeks ago or last week or so. It talked about the maintenance of the ground. And said it's the responsibility of the Town of Berlin Cemetery Commission. Cemetery doesn't take care of that. Highway does. Highway does all the mowing. So is this going to either change to, so Kristen, you have a couple options. Either change this to highway, or if you want to leave it as cemetery, then that starts a whole flood of questions of who's mowing, what are they using for equipment, where are they storing equipment, what are they going to be responsible for?
Doesn't cemetery do the mowing in the cemeteries?
No,
Not highway did.
it's been moved over to highway a couple of years.
Yeah.
One of the things that Margaret did.
Yeah,
was move
our
highway-
intention was
highway-
not to change any existing agreements or plans the way things are done. We do not want to undo things.
And I thought it was highway staff, but sort of under a little bit of direction of cemetery, but that could be a semantics thing.
Yeah. So
But it could
Kristen,
be a
if you
big
can look into
substitute.
that, that's number 6.
Probably, yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
paragraph
just
6,
read.
sorry. That was a good catch, Peg, because in fact, that is true. And just as essentially a typo in this document.
Yep, I'm changing it right now to say Highway Department.
Perfect. Great.
So Mary's had a question for you. A couple of years ago, maybe it was last year, I don't remember, time flies. We were talking about the Bullard House, and we were talking about the use of volunteers, and our town council stood up and basically said, no, you know, that volunteers really should not be allowed to work on historical because they don't have the insurance, you know, they don't have the background. So what does that do, if any, to your plans to get the building reconstructed, or will it totally be Tim, and Tim to do it?
If I understood it, though, the biggest difference is the Bullard House is owned by the town, where the Hearst House currently is owned by the Historical Society. And so the Historical Society can decide to take risks or not take risks as it sees fit. In some respects, this agreement is really the town is doing not much until it is cited, and leaving those responsibilities and questions up to the Historic Society.
Yes.
With the confirmation and approval of the Cemetery Commission.
Obviously, when it comes to the specific spot it goes and how it is laid, yeah.
Exactly. So, and it's my understanding, Peg, you know, Tim has said to me, I think one of the other issues might be that we're talking about supervised volunteers. So he's a professional restoration carpenter. So we're not just going in there and saying, well, that board looks like it should be nailed up. You know what I mean? It's he doesn't let us touch things that we are unqualified to touch.
Yeah.
And he does have an insurance policy, which he tells me is on file at the town. And so I actually got a cover of it, which I might have sent to Kristen, his liability policy.
But, you know, in any event, Mary, what Scott said is accurate, that the activities are under the direction and supervision of the society, not of the town. And so while town council was correct about the Bullard House, that wouldn't apply to the society. It's a separate entity. It's not the town. In either situation, if you wanted to work with volunteers, you could ask them to sign a release if you're really worried about liability. And you know, we use simple release at 19 Carter when we were involved in volunteers working on construction stuff. So, you know, if somebody wanted that, I could give somebody a template release to use, but really Scott's point is the important one, is that the liability runs with the society, not the town, around volunteers. I mean, all of the activity of the restoration, it's the society's gig. They're the owners right now.
Mary, you had mentioned in your presentation that the building will be open at various times. You know, obviously you want to hit the major holidays, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, but it could be open at other times during the year. And if it's a colder period of time, you had mentioned either use of a generator and or space heater, where I'm gonna make a giant assumption that you need to pull in the fire marshal on this, and he will need to give input for use of generator, make sure that it's safe, it's good. Same thing with space heaters. Last thing that we want is anything bad, you know, to happen.
Yeah,
So-
and I shouldn't have used the word generator. I should have used the word like battery pack. You know, the stuff that I was thinking, and again, it would only be used if needed, if it was cold.
Yep.
I'm thinking like camping solar lights, you know, that we bring in and we set up. And then if it happens to be during holidays in Berlin, or it's a particularly cold Veterans Day, you know, a battery pack with a space heater plugged in. But of course, we would contact the fire department before we did that.
And then as I read the agreement we're about putting together, that the maintenance and use is really, again, up to the Historic Society, even after the transfer of ownership over for the next 20 years, sort of what days it's open and not open. And the responsibility of getting whatever permits are needed for the opportunity will be something that is on the Historic Society to maintain. And so if they don't do it, you know, we'll follow up in ways we would other people who don't follow some rules.
Okay.
Everyone's favorite subject in town, storage, lack of. So I have no idea what would go inside a hearse house, obviously beyond a hearse. So, and obviously to make people want to come, you're going to want your exhibit to rotate. People aren't going to want to see the same stale stuff month over month over month for that. So has there been any thought given to whatever artifacts you have, where they're going to be stored? Because we're kind of sort of out of room in various buildings around town. And I know other committees are already asking for additional room, but there's no room to be had. So what thought has been given to any type of, especially large artifacts?
Yeah,
you know, where are they going to go?
Again, I'm sorry, Peggy, I don't know if that's necessarily relevant to the current conversation, because this doesn't change the amount of stuff they have or do not currently have. And the maintenance and use of the hearse house per section 5 is on the Historic Society. So they could decide to use this in the ways they feel is appropriate to use it for the Historic Society. It will not be a town responsibility of what does or does not go into that, or what the Historic Society does with their particular items.
Right, but I'm not asking Scott what's going to go in there. I'm asking for the stuff that they have. If it's a rotating exhibit, where are the items that they're going to want to have be stored? I would assume that, you know, a natural assumption is, oh, they'll put them in a town building, but there are no town buildings to be had to
Right,
store
but
stuff.
whatever
So that was my
whatever they
question.
Put there or store is already put, or this does not change the volume of items the Historic Society or Commission has or oversees. In some respects, at the very best, it might actually, because it's a non-existing building now, give an added space to store or put things that they don't currently have. But it doesn't, there are not, well, it maybe, is the Historic Commission or Society thinking that because they have this, they're going to add more items to their collection? I have Mary Rankin shaking her head. No, I don't.
Well, except a hearse.
Right.
You know, which would be kind of really down the road. The existing collection isn't going to grow exponentially by the, you know, additional 12 to 16 feet. Some of the stuff that doesn't need to be in a controlled environment will be stored here in the hearse house, because it doesn't need, you know, metal stuff, shoe stuff, farm implements, washing machine. You know, Barry made a whole list. I actually have a whole list of stuff that doesn't need like a controlled environment. And then the display would be moved in for the event and then put back in its, the curatorial storage building.
So the one little thing in this agreement that touches on that subject, Peg, of storage is at the end of paragraph 1, we say the society is not going to store things that aren't related to this, what this building is. So I don't know if Barry is on this meeting, but I can think of some historical artifacts that might be relevant to how people were buried back in 1803 and those kinds of things. And I don't know if that's part of our collection presently. And that would be the only thing in addition to a hearse house that we'd really want to put in there. And June, I don't know if you have any insight to whether we have anything in our current society collection that relates, kind of directly to what the hearse house was used for.
One more question, and then I'll stop the Spanish Inquisition for that. So as the hearse house is being built, where are the pieces being stored? Are they going to be still at Cordelia's? Are they going to be in a storage container? Is it going to be in the cemetery?
We'll bring everything as needed on a day-to-day basis. So
Okay.
it's all going to be at Cordelia's. It'll come in, first the floor, and it'll all be transported the same way it was transported out, which is Tim Woolheater's truck and a trailer, which got in and out of there in the past. And obviously we'll be very respectful of the graves around it, but the access should not be a problem, Peg.
Okay. And you mentioned Tim going in with his trailer and truck. So obviously there's no weight restrictions to get, because I'm assuming that you probably come right off the main street, like right there. You wouldn't be all the way in the back in the corner and then come down, that it would be
It was
almost
it was
on the
all hauled away
road.
on that same vehicle. So
Yep.
it's been hauled through town a couple times on that vehicle, actually.
Yeah.
Helped unload it even.
All right.
June, you had your hand up for a moment. Did you still have something to add?
Let's see, am I muted?
No.
No, okay. I just wanted to refer to the listing that Mary had in her presentation. All of those items that could be displayed in the hearse house are already stored. There's nothing new that would require further storage. And I do think we have some information, some ephemera and other documents that would help the context of that time when the town held this responsibility for providing a hearse and burial customs.
Right. And although there's many people who like the idea of having a hearse to go in the hearse house, there's not actually even one identified to buy or funds identified even to find it yet. Right.
That's right.
It'd have to be empty to put the hearse in there, though.
Yeah, it has to be structured and built before you can put a horse in it. So are there other questions from select board members?
No, so Kristen, there's no problem. Any concerns? I know Margaret started this conversation a long time ago with town insurance about this. There's been no negative feedback that they have on adding this or taking it on to a town-owned building.
We go through a process every year when we renew our insurance of adding a building. It's hard for me to have them assess it because it's in pieces right now. I would have to have them take a look at it and come out once it's put together. But I don't see an issue with them adding a restored historic building. I've certainly gone through that before. We have a few now. They actually were amenable to the issue that we had with some storage while the Bullard House was being renovated. They were able to insure those items off-site. So they've worked with us, very well to address a lot of these issues. So I really don't foresee a problem there. I just wouldn't be able to get you a cost right now. I don't anticipate it would be all that expensive as it's not very large.
And then Walter, I do see your hands up in the audience, and so we'll bring you forward, but that Kristen, when we did the scoreboard and the announcement booth over for the rec committee, that did not have any sort of significant increase to the taxes. And that's a building that's higher off the ground, has electrical in it and other stuff that would, in theory, be more of a risk than a 12 by 16 or foot building with no electrical or plumbing, right?
Yeah, when did those come on insurance?
Just in the last year or two.
Yeah, I mean, we had a 0% increase going into FY '24, so they're pretty happy with our loss runs,
Okay.
so.
Walter, you have a quick question or comment? You're muted at the moment.
Walter left the room.
I have asked him to unmute, but
Yeah.
I will
Okay.
put his hand up.
Oh,
Now,
Yep, Walter.
all right, okay.
Oops. And then he's.
there
booted
he
back.
is. Unmute.
Sorry, I went to drop his hand and I killed his mic. There you go, Walter.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thanks a lot. Okay. I have a few things that I would like to donate, but without the proper storage and everything, for example, I have a Keen sleigh that came out of the Tyler farm. That's probably, that's worth $4,000 or $5,000. It's in beautiful shape. That could be in there. I have a large collection of antique tools. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, am I that funny? Okay. Anyway, we do need some more storage place and some good storage place to put a lot of things. So the Hearst House would provide some of that space. The other thing I just want to comment on, and Peg has been out front on this, and I appreciate her position and everything, but this idea of volunteers, they shouldn't be around. You got to keep a leash on them, get them to sign their life away. If that's where Berlin is gone, I mean, it's I just think, it's very discouraging. We rebuilt the town hall and people brought in heavy equipment. There were plumbers, there were electricians. Nothing was signed. We did it all and could have done the same for the Hearst House and could have done the same for the Bullitt House. It would have been all done by now. And this is not a Bullfinch building. Bullfinch, by the way, built the State House. It was built by farmers and it could have been repaired and it could be all done instead of spending this money on consultants, which are totally unnecessary. But I guess I just had to throw that in. I've been little stewing about this for several years now, and it's a shame where we are on it. But anyway, that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Walter.
And Marys, I appreciate you entertaining my questions. As I said to the both of you, to question is to educate and to educate is to learn. And so, when we met a few months ago and I'm like, nope, that's a hard no. I got a hard no. So you both have been very kind to, go through all my litany of questions and, help move the hard no needle, just a smidge. So thank you. Appreciate it.
You're worth it, Peg.
Thanks, Mary Porter.
Chris, do you have any other questions or any questions?
No, but I would be happy to make a motion.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. I would make a motion that the select board have the chair, I think it's just the chair that signs it.
You're signing it, yep.
Chair sign the agreement for the Hearst House.
As long as Kristen's made the change on the highway, which she can confirm.
Yes, and can I just, I don't see that this is going to take more than a minute to have legal counsel review it, but I would like to just have it subject to legal counsel review.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I want to speak to that because I'm not a municipal law lawyer. I don't even play one on TV. So I'm happy to do this kind of work, but I would feel remiss if I didn't say, yes, I recommend having having town council take a quick look at it.
We absolutely appreciate your drafting it, Mary.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was very well done, I think. Are we ready to vote then? Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Mary's sitting there going, oh, which way is she gonna go? Stone Eye.
Great. Thank you, everyone involved. I look forward to the site planner working with in the Cemetery Commission and actually seeing that building go up. It will be so cool to watch.
Yeah,
Thank you again for all your time, Peg. I know you spent a long time going through all that and coming up with the questions. So we do
Thanks.
appreciate your attention to detail.
Thank you, Marys.
All right, guys.
thanks, everybody.
Have a good night. Bye, Joan.
Bye-bye.
We're off.
Peg, while you were in internet void land,
Darkness.
and darkness, we covered the town administrator report. I don't know if you have it online or had questions for Kristen based on it. We also will have a chance to ask questions under our sort of select board comments and questions period too, but
Just one question, Kristen. Thank you. What's going on with the dump? Are we gonna be okay to open it on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday?
So that's a great question. I spoke briefly with Sue today. They were working on a plan and I will be speaking with Paul tomorrow. So they've been looking and they have a lot of people that have stepped forward. I know that Sue was mentioning that over the weekend, she was down there on Saturday all day, going over operations, making sure that she understood everything so that she could, make sure everything is shown properly to folks who are coming down there. I believe that we are in good shape, but I will have a final plan hopefully in the morning.
Okay. All right, and I'm sure that Board of Health will step up and go sit there if they can't find anybody, because I wouldn't want to be at that gate if someone can't get in on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Just saying.
No, and I think it's we're a service-oriented business. We're here for the residents. It's important to keep that going. And, a lot of folks have stepped forward to volunteer. And I've learned through this process that a lot is automated through buttons. So it's not like folks are, cranking open the hopper and going to stick their leg in it and, worries, concerns about, getting hurt. So there's a lot of buttons that actually are run from inside of the office. So we're in pretty good shape there. And I will continue working with them. We've been in communication every day, if not multiple times a day.
Okay. Did you address Fred's email under correspondence? I think that's when I went dark. I always go dark.
I did not do anything under correspondence. Which email are you referring to?
That was the email that he sent through about how he's given numerous citations to people who are apparently dumping snow in the road, and he wants to know who really owns it, and I'm going to assume next step is fines.
Let's see.
He sent that email out. Oh, when did he send it?
Oh, last night at 11:47. Boy, he's up late.
Yep.
I'm up late, but he was up later than me. Let's
Yep.
see. Enforcement of the town bylaws.
Yeah.
I
I have sent several letters to habitual offenders regarding snow or ice.
Wouldn't that be Eric, the police?
Yeah, so that's a great question because in looking at the bylaw, it doesn't actually say who enforces that. My first thought would be police. They would have to have something on their ticket book to issue those fines. So I will follow up with the chief. Oh, he's here. Look at him.
He's here, but he
Mary
might
just
not have
makes
had a chance to
people-
prepare for this.
Mary makes people appear. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm here. So 27 plus years being here. Police department has never issued a fine. I know the board has sent out letters to residents in the past. So, this is all new. And, do we have authority to do it under the bylaw? That's a good question.
I thought when we talked about it at town meeting, Eric, I thought we talked about how it would be up to the police to collect on the fines.
We don't collect at all. We need a hearings officer.
Okay.
We can issue, bylaw citations, but they need a way to appeal them and it can't be through the issuer.
And I would add that, like, this was not an agenda item on, and we can talk about that. We got a correspondence on, but I think it's something that
Right.
I've made a note to put on for next week's agenda and give both Chief Shartner and Kristen a chance to sort of do some research and bring something back to us.
Great, we'll look
Good.
into it.
Okay. And
Um,
then, wait a minute, there was one more, Kristen, from maybe a week or so ago. I'm scrolling. Hold please. From Tim Wysocki regarding a request from you for the National Grid Fleet Manager vendor. He said it would be a great opportunity for Berlin to explore options for a sustainable fleet without additional cost. There are 15 spots in the program, so a bit of time pressure to get the, it just, whatever document, he said it needs to be signed, so
Okay.
non-binding. Do you have what he's talking about?
Yep, so I'm just, hold on one second, I'm pulling this up. So
He
one of
sent
the
it
things
to you January 6th.
Yeah, one of the things I was concerned about was that that would take up some pretty significant staff time and resources. There's a lot of data that's very specific that needs to be collected on vehicles. So one of the things I had asked him to do was just, it's basically impacting police, fire, and highway, because they are the three departments essentially that have vehicles. I said, you know, my concern was that this may take time with regard to data collection, and asked if this was a project the Energy Committee wanted to take on. I'm getting really concerned about how behind in procurements we are. It's something that like literally keeps me awake at night, and I'm really trying to get to it. I don't have the capacity to take anything on right now. And I said, you know, if the individual departments are able to provide that data, this should not be an issue. But I asked him to please confirm with those departments, share that spreadsheet of requested information and confirm that they're able to provide it. And I did send that back to him over on the 12th, but I haven't heard anything back yet.
All right, I'll follow up with him.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm happy to, you know, if it's
I got
something we do, we'll do it.
No, I got it. So I'll take that off your plate.
Thank you so much.
You betcha. All right, I'm done. Thanks, Scott, for letting me catch up.
Yep, no problem. The other two things that we did while you were away is we did the vote to appoint Lucy to the Historic Commission and approve the hiring of the highway laborer. I think those are pretty perfunctory stuff. But that does leave us then the fiscal year 24 budget discussion and vote. Kristen, are there budget items worthy of discussion tonight or ready for discussion tonight? They're all worthy of discussion.
There are. So let me just pull this up so I can share my screen with you. Why is this doing this? Okay, there we go. Okay. Try and make this bigger. There we go. Now we can actually see this. Let me share my screen with you all. So one of the things we talked about briefly at Coffee Talk, I gave a really brief overview to the FinCom last week, and I gave a brief overview to the select board and the public at Coffee Talk. But I think it's worth stating quickly here where we are in terms of both revenues and expenditures for the budget. So if you'll allow me, I'd like to just give a really brief overview and then go into the couple of budgets that I wanted to speak about this evening. So I will issue the same caveat that I've been issuing. This is extraordinarily preliminary and based on a lot of assumptions. A lot of what we're looking at is based on level funding from FY23 because we don't have all of the data yet. If you look at the first page, which is basically a roll-up summary of revenue and expenses, you'll see that I'm basically estimating where we're at on property taxes based on what we can do from recap sheet with new growth, etc. State aid, I've level funded from FY23 actual numbers. Which you'll see this recap column. There's a difference between the budget and what the actuals came in as on the recap. So that's why I left that FY23 recap column there. I've essentially level funded the local receipts, which is the transfer station, with the exception of the small cost of living increase for personnel costs that come there. And then receipts reserved for appropriation, which are ambulance receipts and cemetery receipts, I've level funded at this time. Other revenue sources needs to be adjusted. That number is likely going to be closer to 300,000. We're just not sure right now because part of that pertains to some items with the school. Obligations are often what's referred to as the backside of the cherry sheet. These are what we give back or owe to the state. Things like mosquito control, those types of things. So what we're looking at right now, and again, this is very preliminary, but you're looking at about 15.6 in revenue. And if you scroll down to the expenses part, I have just under 15.5 in department requests. Now, I'd like to point out this does not include any of the supplemental requests, which are an additional $65,000. It also takes into account only a 5% increase on the schools, because we haven't gotten any numbers yet from Assabet. They are set to come before the FinCom soon. And also the schools we've gotten some very preliminary data as we've been discussing. Their preliminary information is estimating anywhere from a 12 to a 20% increase. My concerns based on this, initial information is that there really isn't sufficient funding to support an increase of that size. So what I've put in for now is just a 5% increase, which is sort of standard what's happened over the past couple of years with the schools. But obviously we're going to continue to have a larger conversation about the needs of the schools once I get some firmer numbers from them, which I haven't at this point. And then the other thing I'd like to point out, and again, this is, very preliminary, but you have about 1.8 million in excess levy capacity. This is great. A lot of this is due to the fact that your departments are really doing what I would almost call razor thin budgeting. I mean, they're budgeting how much they spend on pens and pads of paper and, getting really down to the nitty gritty of postage and breaking out their expense line items. And one of the things that I've seen in my meetings with the department heads is that they've actually reduced some line items where they think that they could cut expenses, or where it came in last year that the expenses were a little bit lower, to try to offset some of the areas where expenses were higher this year. So they're really watching their budgets carefully. They're looking within line items to see what actuals are versus budgeted and where changes can be made up or down. And I've been very impressed with, honestly, the frugality of your department heads. I'm used to seeing what a lot of places call a level funded budget, which you go with what you had last year, plus either a cost of living increase or contractual increases. I've actually had some departments ask for less money because they don't need those certain expenses in particular line items. So you're doing really well with the team that you have here, and they're watching things like a hawk, and I'm very impressed. So you really are looking at a level service funded budget with some increases due to inflation, just cost of supplies and utilities going up especially, and some contractual obligations that have gone up as well. So this second page, again, a lot of assumptions where this breaks down your revenue sources a little bit in a little bit more detail. You'll see that my FY22 recap, which are my actuals on state aid, are what I used as a basis for, this doesn't highlight as well as I would like, a basis for the FY22 budget right now, because we don't have numbers from the state. And as I mentioned, Peg, and you missed this part during the TA report at MMA this weekend, Maura Healy pointed out that they are 12 days into their transition of power. And so while usually rough budget numbers are handed out at MMA, it's going to be February, and the governor's budget is not anticipated to come out until the beginning of March. So we're going to have to run with assumptions right now. I feel comfortable running with FY23 numbers because if anything, those numbers are likely to increase. That is not typically, you do not typically see a decrease year over year. You usually see somewhere in between like the 2.3 to 2.7% increase, which was the rough range that they gave us. They just couldn't give us any exact numbers at this time. Just briefly to go over local receipts, you'll see FY23 budget, we went up significantly between FY23 budgeted numbers and FY24 budgeted estimates on local receipts, and that's a 25% increase. The reason for that is we took a really hard look at how we were budgeting our local receipts. You'll notice there's a significant increase in hotel tax. In FY23, we only budgeted 95,000 for hotel tax, but our actuals came in at 250. Or we are able to estimate rather 250 when we did the recap sheet based on actual numbers that came in for 22 and estimated values that we felt would be reasonable for 23. So I am level funding all local receipts right now. Those may be able to go up a small bit, but probably not much, because we have to look at building permits and adjust that. Those numbers may be a little high because Highland Ridge building permits were included in that. Those have all been pulled and are coming online, which means we won't be getting additional building permit revenue there. And there aren't any other large projects on the horizon that would up the building permit increase numbers. So what I've done right now, again, very conservatively stuck with what we did for the FY23 recap sheet for local receipts. It is a big increase over 23 because we did have a large increase in certain areas. And I think there were some areas we were very conservatively budgeting in prudently. But when we were looking at the large tax increases that were potentially coming through to residents as a result of the split tax rate, going in the direction where commercial businesses are losing their value, and that was impacting the residential side. So commercial business values are going down, residential values go up because of the split tax rate. We wanted to budget a little bit more aggressively with local receipts, so we didn't have to raise and appropriate or tax the residents a higher rate when we did have those funds available that we could demonstrate based on FY22 actuals and FY23 recap. However, I will point that out that you did have some excess capacity there, but going forward, should the commercial values continue to fall, that is really a one-time adjustment. That is not something you're going to be able to adjust year over year. So, you know, if we're not able to fix what's going on with the mall, you know, with some of the other commercial values falling, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to look at raise and appropriate because you've now taken up that capacity. Offset receipts, like I said before, I just level funded except for a 2.5% increase. That's transfer station. Receipts reserved for appropriations, cemetery and rescue squad. As you'll see, other revenue sources have gaps in there. Estimated obligations are the backside of the cherry sheet I was mentioning. Oh, sorry about that. And problem I have is I gotta tip my laptop back a little because it actually covers part of my screen. I'm also waiting for a firm number under debt exclusions on the Tohoto debt service. I have requested it, but Dennis has let me know that 291,175 for the highway barn is the correct number. So if we are the same in 24 as we were in 23 for Tohoto, we've gone down slightly, around 1% on the debt exclusions. So sorry if that was a bit long-winded. I just hadn't given an overview to the select board yet of where we're at very preliminarily. I would be happy to take any questions at this point, or I can go on to expenditures.
Christian, I know that Highland 55 maybe halfway there. So are those permits included?
Right. So the building
permits included?
Yeah, the building permits get pulled close to the beginning. So Rich said that the building permits have been pulled for all of those units.
Okay.
So in my redraft version 3 of the budget, I will be addressing that. All right. Want me to go on to the line items we're looking at specifically tonight?
Sure.
All right. So one item I need to have you guys revote or I believe we discussed this, but I realized that my calculation that appeared on the screen was not correct. This is in the town administrator line item on the expenses. I was asking for that supplemental 550 for Adobe, but I did not carry it over to the recommended amount. So the actual amount that you voted on was 3415, not 3965. So I just wanted a revote on that number as confirmation for the record. The FinCom did vote, as you can see, last Wednesday on the 3965. That
Your shared screen is still on page 1, where I think you're really on page 3 at this point.
Oh, I am on page 3. I don't know why it's, let me try to
Maybe-
stop sharing and start sharing again. Thank you for letting me know. I don't know why it's doing that.
And I have it up on my other screen as well, but the people in the audience should actually be, there you go.
Okay, great. So I'm actually just gonna make this a tiny bit smaller so you can see the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yep, that's good.
Oh,
Oh.
well, that was better.
You're good at 150. Yeah, there you go.
Is that big enough to see? I know it's a little bit small.
Yeah, it's about as big as we're gonna get because it's almost the entire screen.
Yeah.
Oop, I can make it 175. Mess with it just a little bit. There we go. Okay, now you've got your FinCom votes on there. So this is line 8 on the budget. And I'm just asking that the board just reconfirm that vote, which I believe you had agreed upon the Adobe license. But the number just was not accurate in this column. It did not reflect that supplemental funding request.
So I would make a motion to confirm the number is $3,965 for line number 8 expenses.
I'll second it.
Yep, I'm fine with it. So assuming there's not other discussion, Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone, aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry to make you all dizzy. All right, we've got some big budgets this evening for you. And I've got, oops, hold on. I don't know if that's sharing the right screen again. Did it just disappear? Yep.
It disappeared, but you had scrolled down to the correct line. There you go.
Okay, wonders of technology. Okay, so I'd first like to talk about lines 42 through 44, the public buildings account. Had an opportunity to sit down with Fred and really go through this and get into the meat of it. And let's see, where are we? Public buildings, here we are. So really the only increases that are substantive, obviously there's only expenses when it comes to public buildings. Within that line 42 expenses item, the increases are adding pest control for Legion Hall that was not previously budgeted for, and adding cleaning supplies for the municipal offices that were not previously budgeted for. And then there are a couple of small contractual increases ranging from 3 to 7% that combined result in that increase of $2,712 that is being requested for the general public building expenses. The next line down does not have a number because it's been added. This is a recommendation. I understand there's been conversation about this in the past, but there is not a line item for repairs at public buildings. This would be for general all building repairs, you know, something breaks, something needs to be reconfigured, what have you. The reason that made me think of this was the library actually came before Capital and asked for $5,000 for general repairs to the library, like a little bit of painting they needed done. They had another issue, I think, with some bees. And I just thought, well, you know, if we're looking at this, we should look at it comprehensively. And what I would recommend in speaking with Fred was that we put a startup of $10,000 into this line item for repairs, because what's ending up happening is they're going before FinCom for reserve fund transfer requests for small repairs as they stack up and they don't have a budget for them.
See, I always thought that small repairs came out of public building expenses.
So apparently those, so I'll tell you exactly what comes out of that.
Also, that the library repaired for repairs to the library, but that's.
Library has had articles before for their repairs, which I think is a little unusual in my experience. I think they
Sure.
should be budgeted under public buildings. But let me just pull that up.
There is a line at some point you cross where a repair is just an expense versus repair being a capital improvement. You know, a roof is not, a roof replacement is a capital item, not ever an expense line item. You know, replacing a light bulb is clearly an expense, or a light fixture is a repair as opposed to a capital item.
Correct, and that threshold
And I
is,
thought we had fiscal policies that help define the lines of those. So you're right, we're not doing capital planning for relatively small items.
right, so it's $10,000 with a useful life of 5 years or more for a capital item. So basically, Fred's got quite a large spreadsheet here that breaks out what all of the expenses are, and they're mostly for contracts for services as opposed to repairs. He basically has service contracts for elevator, generator, pest control, oil burner, you name it, phone, what have you, cleaning, supplies, and then inspections. So there is not a specific line item at this time for repairs.
And some of those contracts are also cover repairs of some of those items, so there wouldn't actually be an expense for some of those things, but I get that you can't have, you know, contracts for light fixtures or, you know, painting that needs to be done or other things that are small enough that they're not capital.
Right. And that was kind of the idea here. So I just wanted to put it in to kind of start the conversation on that. And then the other thing that is the huge increase is the fuel oil. That is a contractual increase. We went out to bid, believe it. I'm sorry, it's not contractual. We went out to bid. The low bidder was Northborough Oil. Fuel has gone up to $3.999 per gallon from $2.399 per gallon from the last year that we went out to bid. So that is why there's such a huge increase there.
We got a really good deal last year too.
Yeah, compared to what's going on now, I think, isn't it upwards of 5?
I think last year it was even considered a really good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you my last fill up was 4.49 a gallon.
Right. So that's looks like a tremendous increase, and it is, but it could be a lot worse.
I am fine passing public safety as it is recommended.
I mean, public buildings.
Public buildings, yes, the 42, the 44, and including 42A.
So do you want a motion?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve line item 42, 43, and 44.
Including 42,
Seconded.
Excuse me?
including the unnumbered 42A.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
I will give it a number.
I'll say 42 through 44. How's that?
Are there more questions? Hawkins, aye.
Keefe.
Stone Eye.
Thank you. Yeah, and one of the reasons I didn't number it is it required renumbering everything, some
Yep.
things you've already voted on. So
Yep.
I will do that in the next version. It's just going to mess everything up. All right. And next is on to the big one, police. So Chief and I had a really lengthy conversation about a number of these items. The first item 46 is increase the 2.5% as other employees are getting. It's a cost of living that's allowed in the contract for the police chief's salary. The line 47 is actually only going up by a smaller amount than I anticipated. It's only going up by about 1.4% because there's actually a decrease through attrition. You have new employees that are coming in at lower rates of pay. So that's why that line item does not increase by the set 2.5%. They're going off of actual salaries. And that's all in accordance with their union contract. The part-time salaries, you will notice, has an increase that's slightly above 2.5%. And this is due to additional training required by post. which are the state requirements. They have upped training from 400 to 540 hours for full-time officers, and for part-time, they've upped it from 340 to 448 hours. There's also an EMS stipend that is included in the new contract. And there is a new requirement for active shooter training. The chief was able to do a decrease though in the academy line item, as they will be fully staffed and there are no plans to send officers to the academy in 24. So that is how the part-time salaries budget shakes out. On the expense line item, that is about an 8.4% increase, or 9,215. And I'll walk you through why that increase is what it is. He was able to actually decrease the firearms range memberships because it wasn't being used by the officers. And that helped to somewhat offset these costs, which include the Lexipol maintains online policies and procedures. That was a mandated contractual increase. There's a new expense of a scheduling app for shifts, overtime lists, calculating pay, uniform allowances, etc., that they've determined saves and around $15,000 in labor because it does all of the calculations for you. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. There's a small increase for a new membership with the Municipal Police Accreditation Association, as that's one of the chief's goals that he's working on, helps with the accreditation process, policies, procedures, and a dry run. There's an increase for gas, which he's estimated at $3.25 a gallon. An increase to the uniform allowance per the contract. They were able to decrease lockup due to regionalization. And probably one of the biggest increases is ammunition, because the new post requirements for training require this to happen not once, but twice a year. And that's a huge increase in cost right there, as well as the increase in cost of tasers and batteries. So the other area where the chief was able to achieve some savings was in the full-time training. He was able to bring that down a little bit, as the Mass Police Consortium is now offering many free online courses. So basically where you're seeing your expenses go up are what I love to call the unfunded mandate. This is the state post requirements, and the chief went and reduced areas where he felt like he could save some money to try to offset the cost of these new post requirements. He also has 2 supplemental funding requests that I'd like to talk about, but I figured I'd pause for questions before I go into that. And Chief, I believe, is also here too, if you have any specific questions that I didn't answer for you.
There's so much of it that is contractual.
There really is.
And the same goes for fire and EMS.
And the post requirements, I mean, you're having to do double the trainings, which you're having to buy the ammunition and, additional hours and coverage for officers to do those trainings.
The union contract we just signed with the police requires the part-time officers to work a minimum number of hours per year. Do you remember what that number is? That was like 180.
I can pull it up if you give me, if you want to bring Chief forward, he probably knows off the top of his head.
He has been brought up as panelist.
Oh, I'm
He's
sorry.
here
I
at the
didn't see
moment.
that. I can look it up too.
It doesn't change my ability to vote on the budget, but the idea that there feels like there could be part-time officers who are paying more hours of training than actual hours of service to the town.
Well, we were going to have that discussion, I believe, once we had a contract with police.
Right.
So-
One of the reasons for that increase was basically so that, you have officers that if they don't meet those minimum requirements, they would not be reappointed.
Right, and that was new in the contract, and increase in the contract, so it went from sort of non-existent to whatever it is now, but
Correct. I've actually just
whatever to be struck.
pulled it up here. Give me just a second.
It's 208 hours.
Oh, thank you.
Put in 416 to obtain the EMT stipend.
Before I go into the supplemental, did anyone have any other questions on the regular part of the budget?
No. I'm dying to hear about the supplementals. That's
Okay.
larger than the increases that were conjecturally obligated for.
And they are. I will tell you, I went through this in detail with the chief. There are two supplemental funding requests. One is for an additional officer, and one is to add an additional sergeant for the overnight shift. I will talk about the sergeant first. It's a little less complicated. That would be a promotional position to bring the total number of sergeants from 2 to 3. This sergeant would be assigned to the overnight shift, so you have a supervisor on each shift. The cost of that is $8,500. And the additional officer, there has been no increase in officers since 1996. And while the number of officers have not gone up, calls have gone from approximately 4,000 calls per year to 12,000 calls per year. So this would allow for increased patrols. And I'll
I
let
don't know
Chief
that to
take
be
it from there.
true. That when I was on FinCom, I remember I was going from making big debates over that we would go to 1 officer overnight to 2 officers overnight. And regularly whether or not we were increasing it. So I thought during my tenure on FinCom, we did several increasing to the number of full-time officers to the town.
Okay, can I speak for 1 second on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I apologize. I probably didn't explain in detail. This is to increase the day shift staff. We have the same current day shift staff as we did in 1996 when I first started. We had 2 officers and a chief working. Between public records requests, going for accreditation, the number of calls that we have increased, and we've not increased our day shift staff. We have increased our overnight staff to 2 officers over the last 8 years, but we have not had any increase in the day shift staff, and calls have gone up, and responsibilities are extraordinary now.
I apologize for that non-clarification.
So do we want to do police first and then fire, or do you want to do
Well,
fire?
What do we, so Kristen, you were recommending the 41,666 increase?
I was recommending the increase, and I felt that the justification, and I can also pull up the supplemental requests that were submitted. They are in the drive under the FY24 budget. I think having an officer for a commanding officer for every shift makes sense. That's not adding a person, that's just adding an officer. And I do think that the justification with the call volume on the day shift makes sense as well, and allowing for increased patrols. We do get complaints about traffic and about visibility. And I know the chief has a tremendous amount on his plate that's requiring him to be more in the office with post requirements and the accreditation that is a part of his contract. So this would enable him to take on some of those more administrative responsibilities that he's having to take on, while not decreasing the patrols on the road, because, with post and everything, he's less able to be out on the streets.
Chief?
Just one thing we have to realize, with achievement accreditation, which is part of my contract, which I need to do prior to the expiration, it doesn't matter if you're a 10-person department or 150-person department, it is the same work. Neighboring towns are putting a lieutenant and a sergeant, 2 sergeants, a chief and a sergeant. They're putting 2 people on this 16 to 24 hours a week. My goal is to get certified by July of 24 and to be accredited by July of 25. So it's a 2-step process. I'm not sure if the town understood the accreditation when they put it in my contract, the amount of time and money it's going to consume. But from what I hear, by 2027, we all have to be accredited. Another unfunded state mandate.
Yep. And then, Chief, if I understand the 41,666, there's sort of 2 different parts to that. One is adding staffing during the daytime, and one is having a lead person in the evening hours, correct?
So 31 and some change, or 33,000 around there, is to hire another full-time officer I anticipate our process is not a quick one. If we got approved in May, we'd advertise in July. By the time we do testing, background checks, and select somebody, it would be January probably before they'd be able to start. My anticipation is to get somebody already academy trained, you know, and even if we didn't, we don't have to backfill a position. This position, obviously, when it comes on board, I don't have to worry about vacation, backfilling vacation, sick time, personal time, because we already have 2 people on, and the third person would just make life a lot easier on the day shift. But, you know, and I think it's also going to decrease my part-time budget as well, because, you know, if one of the 3 takes the day off, we're not going to be backfilling the shift.
So what I just pulled up was your supplemental funding request, Chief, for the 33,166 for the full-time officer. One thing to note, this is only for a partial year. So this is for 6 months of FY24. So the rest of this would have to be budgeted in FY25 should this go forward.
Chris or Peg, your thoughts on this particular of the increase?
Well, if you're going to get yourself accredited, I think, you know, I don't think you have much of a choice. You need the manpower.
I mean, and that was my biggest concern, is the accreditation combined with those additional post-administrative requirements, Chris.
And it is an unfunded mandate.
We've gone from 40 hours of training a year up to 56 per officer.
Yep. Peg, you've been quiet on this one.
I'm really not quite sure what to say. I mean, obviously, if calls are going up, you know, it's needed, but at the same time too, I just don't know where all this money is going to come from. I mean, look at highway. It took us 26 years to increase highway, you know, and they're responsible for a lot more as well. Again, I kind of feel like there are no options. Well, there is an option. You can say no, and then what's it to Eric's detriment? You know, you say yes, and you know, whoever has the magical money tree in the backyard, I wish they'd start sending around seeds.
Well, and this would be looking at, basically, we get a small amount of new growth every year. So you're looking at tapping into those numbers. That doesn't require additional taxation, that, you know, upon residents to, you know, access something like this would be from the new growth that we've seen in the town, that we're able to tap into.
My feeling, I think adding a daytime person makes a lot of sense. The reasons, I think, because it might actually, and I know it's hard to quantify right now, have some downward pressure on the part-time hours, which you won't be able to quantify for this year, but surely could for fiscal year 25. I would rather not do both of these increases and pass on the designated of a night shift lead. I know that's only an $8,500, but that is, you know, as Peg points out, we're not unlimited money. And if I know it's the bigger of the two, but I also think it's the one that I think has bigger bang for the buck for what Berlin residents get out of doing it.
I'll just say it again. I think we need to bite the bullet. The town has to keep up with all the unfunded mandates, and people want to see that the police are taking care of them.
And just to be clear, again, I know I said it, but just to make it crystal clear, this is only a partial year salary for that officer. So you would need to commit to the additional 33,000 in FY25 as well. I mean, I guess you don't have to commit to it, but then you'd have to lay the officer off, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
I think you also have to remember that the part-time budget is going to dramatically decrease as well as we, you know, over the course. I mean, the state has made it where part-time officers through attrition will pretty much be obsolete in the next 10 years. We'll have a lot of retirements, we may have one or two, but we're not gonna have a staff of 8 like we currently have. It's, unless I can tap into resources of retired officers that fall under the age limit.
And as you point out, Chief, that this means when you have this person is that on most days you'll have 3 people, but if someone is out sick, you might still just have 2 for that day. Or right now, if you have 2 people, one is out sick, you have to pull in a part-time officer.
Or overtime.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I anticipate, like, rough numbers, I anticipate that part-time budget going down 15 to 18,000.
Right. So that next year's increase might actually, even though you're going to have this person year round and add another 33 to full-time, you might be taking 10, 15 or 20 off of part-time.
Correct, because, we'll have them there, especially during training, when officers are trained. The most senior officers work day shifts. There's the ones with the most time off. So that's going to cover a lot of vacation time, sick time, personal time.
And so I'm willing to make the motion to approve the police budget, but the supplemental ad being, I don't have the number in front of me, Kristen, I think it's 33.6 or something like that, which is just the daytime officer and not the overnight increase as well.
Let me just pull that number up. I have it right here. It's
Yeah, that is-
33,166 for the full-time officer for half year.
Right. So that's what I would put forward.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add one more thing. Just remember, when I go through accreditation, we're gonna be down to 1 sergeant for almost 2 years. Because that sergeant's gonna have to basically come off the road with me and dedicate a lot of hours to get an accreditation. So that was the main reason to go for the 3rd sergeant, so I can maintain 2 supervisors and have one by my side that will help us get through accreditation.
I hear you, Chief. I think it's something more that I'd rather have 1 more year before we do it, just because it's going to add that. I'm trying to limit sort of what we do for increases. And so like Peg's sort of struggling of sort of what is practical and doable.
It's definitely understandable. If you give me my choice of one or the other, I'd like to get another employee on the road.
Yep.
So you made the motion, Scott.
I did. But I
Peg,
haven't
are
heard
you-
anyone else gonna say a second or offer a different proposal.
Peg, you checking it?
Second, I mean, there is no choice, obviously. We gotta find out where we can cut, because we can't keep doing this, so. I'll second it for now.
I think we might be then ready to vote on the police budget, then Hawkins, aye.
Keith, no.
Stone eye.
Can I just make a suggestion? How much, I'm fading fast. I don't know whether we could just finish this up and put some of the other things on another agenda. It seems as though we had
Yes.
quite a few things on this agenda that were lengthy.
Yep.
Sure. I can
So we'll
put this
put the
on next
personnel
Monday.
policy off to next week. And I think actually the police chief the fire chief's already been moved to next week. And I think the select board annual report, it can be a 2-minute one.
I think we need
How
to
much
try.
more do you want to do on the budget tonight? Do you need more stuff, much more tonight, Kristen?
I
do
had
fire
more,
and
but
then
we can put it on for next week. That's no problem.
Why
Okay,
don't we hit fire? So we did fire and police together and then call it a night for the budget.
okay.
Fire's pretty straightforward. I think I can do that one relatively quickly for you. Fire is reflective of the new chief's salary, including that 2.5% COLA that takes effect January 1, 2024. The full-time wages, there's one thing I wanted to show you. There's a decrease in there because there is one full-time person who prefers to take comp time instead of their holidays paid out. Which I would actually recommend that that's kept in there, because in the case that personnel should change in any shape, I mean, you can take it out, but you may have to add it back in. So I did leave it as the chief recommended without the 11,000, but I was thinking about it today and I went, God forbid something changes in the next 6 months and you need to bring on somebody else who wants to be paid out for their holidays. You're going to have to find a way to fund that $11,000. So it would basically be level funding it at 206,382 instead of reducing it to 194,917. And that would be my recommendation. That's the only change I would recommend. Part-time wages, you have to go off of the FY23 numbers, as the union contract has not yet been negotiated. And this, of course, does not include any increases that might come from FY24 through 27 contract negotiations, because we can't. If I put in a lump sum of money to use for contract negotiations, obviously that's not a savvy thing to do, because they'll just ask for that, because that's what anybody would do. So basically that's requested at level funded. And then the expenses were going up 2.5% due to increases in maintenance, fuel, and gas line items.
Kristen, can you say that again about, there's a person who prefers comp time?
Correct.
So they'd rather take comp time than get paid?
Yes.
For me, the 11,000 is one of those, I don't like too many budgets of this might be higher because something might happen, because I think that's what reserve fund transfers are for. If we did every line item for something that might increase, potentially might increase, well, we would overtax the citizenry. So I would like to keep it at the numbers that the chief recommended and the numbers that are printed in the report you have.
Okay. That's all I had.
Yep.
Wow. Reserve fund transfer, I mean, the amount's getting down, Scott, so you know that well's not going to be able to be tapped too many times.
I do feel a little uncomfortable not accounting for holidays pay for a position, but
it doesn't sit well. I don't
one for me.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with
I
that.
woke up
That
in the middle of the night on that one.
that you get to choose whether you're going to take paid time or whether you're going to take comp time. What tail is wagging the dog on that one?
You're welcome to put in a motion to add 11,465 to the budget.
So is that your original? I mean,
I did not make a motion. I said that my
No,
basic
no.
recommendation would be to keep the numbers as printed in this thing and
No,
not.
I was asking Kristen. Kristen, is this the one that you're saying you regret the reduction of 11,465 in the middle of the night?
I do. I
Okay.
followed the chief's original recommendation. I did have a conversation with June. She had some concerns about not properly accounting for holiday pay. And I thought about it some more, and you know, obviously it's up to you folks how you want to go with it.
Okay, I'll make the motion to go with the original 206,382 in line item 51, and approve of 50 and 52 and 53 also.
So you're adding the 11,000 back in?
Yes.
And I mean, this does assume, Scott, that if it's not used, it would be returned to free cash, because it's specific to
Right,
the
but-
full-time wages
But
line.
not used returning to free cash is money we took from taxpayers we did not need to take.
Yeah, but I don't think you want to, when you're talking about.
I am fine with a 2-to-1 vote. I do not
Yeah.
want to add that 11,000 in, and I'm totally fine with a 2-to-1 vote, and we can move on.
But yeah, I
we
am
don't agree on
too.
all the
but
items.
I'm just saying it, I'm not so sure that it's the right thing to reduce something like wages.
And I'm not so sure that someone gets to be able to pick how they want to be paid.
Well, that's
That-
probably for another night.
And
Well,
And
until
if we
that
can
gets
always
answered,
change This, if you'd like, we can always change this if we get more information.
Sure. These are not set in stone. They can be
Right.
revoted if need be.
I mean, I'm fine with 50, 52, and 53, but until there's answers to 51 on why someone, how they determine that they get paid, I'm not putting it in and I'm not taking it out. I am not approving line 51.
Do you have are you able to investigate this a little further, Kristen?
Absolutely. If you
Okay,
all
then
are
I
comfortable
will,
with the
I
other
will,
ones.
I will change my motion then to approve 50, 52, and 53.
That I'll second.
Thank you.
I think we might be ready to vote then. Hawkins, aye.
Keep I.
Stone eye.
I think we gotta keep this thing moving, when we do this.
Okay. And
So I
can
think
certainly
that,
take
I
the
think that'll
rest.
be the budget stuff for tonight, Kristen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The last item, the last new business item for tonight is the 2022 Select Board Annual Report, which I think we're just gonna direct Mary to do a draft of, and we will discuss at our next meeting.
Yes. If that works for you all, she's willing to draft it up for your review.
And then board questions, comments, and liaison updates. Do you want to start, Chris?
I'm all set.
I want to say that Ag Commission elected a new chair. That James Wheeler will be taking over chair as of February 1st. Oh my goodness. So he's been chair forever.
Carl Wickstrom.
Paul Wickstrom, oh my goodness, I don't know why that, it just is stepping down. He has served for quite a while there and volunteered on some other committees as well. But the commission is going to be in very good hands with James. And that I sadly have not been able to read the minutes of the historic, but I know they visited is it 156 Central Street for historic review, because it is a demo permit has been put in for it, and I'm sure they'll have some commentary on that at some point soon too. Peg?
Yeah, I'll go quick. ADA, I'm meeting with Kristen and June tomorrow. Figure out what I need to ask of contractors to start to do the work. An update went out to Assabet guy tonight, met with Richard and Kristen and Fred and talked about what needs to happen for signs. So he has all the information. So I'm sure the next thing is for him and his folks to come for a visit, and we'll figure out what to do. And I forgot to ask Carolyn while she was here. Cell tower guy was supposed to do a site visit on Monday with Concom up at Rattlesnake Hill. So curious as to what happened with that, but I'll get that from Carolyn. So other than that, I'm done.
So how are we paying for these signs?
No. I mean, so we'll come back. We're hoping maybe that Assabet will give us they'll give us the signs. I don't know. Maybe it's something we can come out of ARPA money. Don't know. I mean, but it's something that has been a project that has, again, been kicked down the road multiple years. So you know what? Let's just put it out there and get the information. We do it, we can't. But at least, you know what? Instead of oh, we should, we never do. Just get a quote. That's all I'm asking, is to figure out next steps and then bring it back to the board after Assabet guy and his team come, and they come back and say, we can give you 14 signs for $6.08 and we'll put them up for you. And, you know, you can take them down and move them to the other side of the hall if needed, because they can't go from the ceiling. You know, you can't put them really on a sign, can't block a stairway. So they've got to be wall mounted, but they've got to have them so that if June, I'll pick on June. June's on this side of the hall. June moves to this side of the hall. You need to be able to transfer the sign, you know, with the indicator, because right now the indicator would do this, but then the indicator has to do that.
Well, why don't we think long and hard about the item that we just passed over, which is employees, and then also figure out where we can find money for this.
I mean, that's all I'm asking, is that it's, you know, we start to look and see what's
No, but
feasible and not. I
we
mean,
have been looking, and it's been, you know, and it very well may be necessary. It's just we need to find out how it's gonna get paid for and what it's gonna cost.
No idea. That's why we're asking. I mean, but if you know, when you go into the town hall and I can stand there and have a conversation with Mary and watch this poor woman from town spin around 3 or 4 times because she has no idea where to go, you know, or she interrupts Mary or they go into Kristen because they're looking for somebody.
I understand, Peg. I'm not arguing it's not necessary. It's just that, you know, we need to know where that money's coming from too.
Don't know. We'll find out when the money comes back. So,
We'll figure that out then.
Yep.
At a next meeting.
well, probably not at the next meeting because I doubt that he can turn around that information quick, but at some future meeting, I'm sure Assabet guy will come back and let us know what they can or can't do, and then we'll figure out what we can or can't do. So,
Okay.
Is that all we have for tonight, folks?
I think so.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, and
Motion to adjourn.
yes, sorry, we needed that formal motion to adjourn, don't we?
second,
Hawkins, aye.
Keep I.
Stone Eye.